Let's meet someone who transformed from a Special Forces sniper to a global leader in wildlife conservation. I'm Kate Save. The Inspired CEO starts now. Welcome to The Inspired CEO, where each episode we explore the innovative wellness practices that are driving success and longevity in the modern business world. In this episode, we chat with Damian Mander, who is an Australian-born, Zimbabwe-based environmentalist, former Special Forces sniper, and founder of Akashinga. Committed to wildlife conservation, he pioneered the all-female ranger initiative, empowering communities to combat poaching. Damian's work has earned global recognition, including the Winsome Constance Kindness Gold Medal, featured in Game Changers and National Geographic. He's an acclaimed speaker and advocate for sustainability and gender equality. Welcome, Damien. Thank you.
How are you, mate?
Good. What an introduction. Wow, what have you not done recently? And a family.
Yeah, got a few balls in the air.
Yes, but, very busy.
Yeah, it's great to be home. Great to see you again, mate. Thanks very much for having me on.
Pleasure. So tell us your story. So a lot of people, anyone from the Mornington Peninsula knows your name, and anyone who went to school locally.
Yeah.
So now you're in Africa. What does that journey look like from being based in Melbourne, Australia, to now in Africa?
I mean, I grew up loving the water. There was always free diving or scuba diving, and then any kid that loves the water, you know, the ultimate job is to be a Navy diver. I eventually became a Navy diver with the Australian military. After September 11, the Australian government formed what they termed the first and last resort for a terrorist attack on home soil. Yeah. And I went across to Army into a very small niche special operations unit as part of sniper platoon. Ended up in Iraq from 2005 to 2008, and then sort of pretty disillusioned after all of that, 9 years of military service and trying to figure out the what next. Yeah. Lost the mission, lost the brotherhood around you, and you know, for what it's worth at the time, the most elusive thing in life, purpose, and sort of trying to figure out the what next. And I think for a lot of ex-military people, that's where the real war starts, when the bullets stop.
Yeah, and a lot of people's stories would have stopped there because what you had already achieved would be a lifetime worth of memories and things that you've done that you kept going. So what happened next?
There's a lot of selfishness and ego, you know, not only with myself, but I'd say, you know, once you get into certain positions like that, you've got to keep proving yourself. And, you know, what next? You know, what does someone who's just had that CV go on to do next? And also the reasons I was doing what I was doing, they were for selfish reasons. You know, I joined the military for adventure. I went to Iraq to make money, and eventually when I went to Africa, I was looking for a fight, not a cause. Yeah. You know, I'd heard about anti-poaching, and it seemed like a cool thing to do for 6 months, run around and you know, get the next sort of notch on the belt. Yeah. And it wasn't until I got there and really started to see, you know, the real struggle of what wildlife rangers are going through on a minimal salary, leaving their families behind for up to 11 months of the year, and they're out there fighting for the heart and lungs of the planet. And when you see that and you realise you're over there trying to have an adventure on the coattails of their hard work, it makes you start to really reflect on who you are as a person, and I suppose give you the opportunity for, you know, this constant self-evolution.
And so looking back now, I've watched your TED Talk, and that pivotal moment seems to be when you were faced with was it a wildebeest or a buffalo that was suffering?
Yeah, I wanted to be a chef actually. I had the enrolment forms to go and start training to be a chef down in Cape Town, and was out patrolling one day and saw a Cape buffalo, so one of the most dangerous animals that you'll come across. And this particular one, she had her back leg caught in a wire snare. We got closer. You know, the trackers said she'd been there for 3 days, struggling, and struggling so hard that she'd ripped her pelvis up in half. and we had to euthanize her. And when we did, she gave birth to a stillborn calf. And I'd done pretty well from a soldier's standards in terms of residential property investment. So I had a handful of houses here in Australia and a couple of apartments in Dubai, and contacted Mum the next day and just started liquidating everything. So, as they say, burn the boats. Gave myself no exit strategy other than to set up this foundation and try and do something with the only two things I had in this world was some money and an unfortunate set of skills that's required to go out there and protect animals.
And on your own at this point, so no one else joined you?
I was Robinson Crusoe at the time. Well, actually, when I left Australia, I didn't even have a check-in bag.
You're
when
kidding.
I got on the plane, I had a set of boots and a carry-on bag, and that was it. Yeah, back in 2009 now. Yeah.
So how do you establish yourself then in Africa?
I tell you what, if I'd done any research, Zimbabwe probably would have been one of the last places on the planet that a white former special operations sniper would have tried to set up a paramilitary training school. A lot of sensitivities around that. It took a long time to build up the level of trust that we now have to be the second largest conservation employer in Zimbabwe behind the government itself.
Wow.
But look, I went through a handful of countries, travelling around Southern Africa, just having a look and just seeing this constant situation where these rangers, I'd just come from Iraq. We were working within a $600 billion a year defence budget, and we were fighting the arguments of old men for resources in the ground. And here are these rangers going out doing something that inspired me in a world that it's hard to be genuinely inspired today. There's so much bullshit that we see on social media, and it's here I was seeing it face to face, real, and it made me want to be a better person. And we are all a product of our past.
Yeah.
If I'd seen if I'd seen what I saw a decade earlier, would I have been interested? Probably not. But Iraq and doing the things that we did as a way of breaking down that sort of macho ego suit of armor that you have around yourself, and you get a different lens through which to view the world.
Incredible. And so you've then settled on a particular area to start your first conservation mission.
Yeah, started in Zimbabwe, Victoria Falls. It was actually the first place I got an opportunity, and just went out and started training a group of rangers. And started seeing the reaction that was happening when they, these were people that didn't even have radios or medical kits, and least of all the leadership. Just someone that's willing to give them the time of day to show them some new skills. They're going out against armed poachers in groups of up to 15, 30 people, crossing international borders with automatic weapons, heavy caliber rifles, trying to kill elephants and rhinos, and these guys are going out there with barely anything. And it's like I just wanted to do something to help, and that's how it starts. I didn't, looking at where I am today to back then, it's not like we had this big roadmap. We just made a start, and I think that's the most important thing for anyone that's trying to get involved with anything. You've got to just start somewhere, just find something and start with it.
So now you've got an all-woman operation, or certainly the anti-poachers are the women. You've got some men on the team as well helping with training.
Yeah.
How big is this territory that you're covering?
So, we started, the initial area we started training was about 5,000 acres. We now look after 13 million acres across 5 countries.
And what are those countries?
Botswana, Namibia, Zimbabwe, Mozambique and Kenya. But we've trained leaders that operate across 12 countries and 2 continents. So there's 2 things we do now. There's been evolution in terms of what we do as an organisation. I came from the military, so fell into cadence with the law enforcement side of conservation, which is anti-poaching.
Yes.
Over time, you start to realise on a continent that's going to have 2 billion people, by 2040, conservation is not a conservation issue. It's a social issue, and if you want to have a conservation outcome, then you need to have social impact. And so 8 years into doing what we were doing, thinking, being the last line of defense for these animals was the best thing to do, we started doing a lot of research into, what was the single most effective dollar that can be spent on community development. It turns out it's women's empowerment. Now, I come from, essentially the ultimate boys club, special operations. You can be the president of a country and be a woman, but you cannot be special operations and be a woman. And I'm in a male-dominated industry where women were not given access to the experience necessary to be able to gain any, employment. They outnumbered 100 to 1 in this industry.
Wow.
And not only that, we're working in very patriarchal societies. So we were trying to figure out how to get women involved in conservation when all the odds were completely stacked against us. And we tried in multiple areas across, I think, 2 countries, 7 different areas, and we had closed doors everywhere we went in trying to start this initial all-female anti-poaching unit. Yeah.
And you said you've got great leaders in each area. What does it take to be a leader, and how do you find these leaders?
Yeah, so when we started with the first 16 women in Zimbabwe, up in the lower Zambezi Valley, we drew from the local communities, the women, like the criteria. Like when I first got there in Zimbabwe, I had the lowest life expectancy in the world for a woman. It was 37 years of age. So when we started this program, we thought, let's create opportunities for those that deserve it the most or need it the most. And so they were survivors of sexual assault, domestic violence, AIDS orphans, single mothers, and abandoned wives. And what we didn't realise in that process is we're actually getting the toughest. And anything that we put these women through was nothing compared to what they'd come from or stood to go back to.
Wow.
And over time as this program, we started to see it like this is scalable. We started to see de-escalation in conflict with the local communities. We started seeing women who invest 80 to 90% of their money back into family and local community versus a man that spends 30 to 40%. We saw an opportunity to make this bigger. But what we also saw is a lack of available leadership from these women because they hadn't been given access to the experience necessary. So one of the most important things in what we do today is building that capacity for creating leadership opportunities for women so they can rise up and come through the ranks. You can give them all the qualifications in the world and all the training, but you can't fast track experience.
Yeah.
And so this is one of the things that we do have some of the most highly qualified men on the continent in the world working in conservation who are mentoring these women in everything from biology and the scientific department through to law enforcement and in some cases the more paramilitary style version of what these women have to go up against. And if you're going to train women that are coming from rural communities where most of them have never had a job, you want to bring in the best to do that because ultimately, while we can hope for the best, we have to prepare for the worst. They're going out against armed poaching units that are willing to kill elephants, rhinos, or anything standing in their way.
I must say, naively, when I watched some of the documentaries and some of everything that you've done that's on the internet, YouTube, I really didn't expect to see the women being trained at such a high level in terms of their fitness, their fighting skills. But like you said, they're going up against men with rifles that can kill them. And they really are having that training that perhaps, certainly most women here in Australia haven't seen. More than likely they haven't seen that either. So how do you open a woman's mind to taking on that, I guess, that masculine power, that wanting to fight and... Yeah.
So, I've built a career across 3 continents in training men for armed conflict, for law enforcement and conservation. This group of women, the initial group of women, we started with 16 women. We've now got nearly 1,000 staff that have scaled since 2017. One of the major things that we've seen is women bring a different value system to law enforcement. So they naturally de-escalate tension in situations that would otherwise escalate. We found something far more powerful than biceps and bullets, and that's relationships. These women come from the communities. directly alongside the areas we're trying to protect. They were raised there, they're raising their own families there, they're investing their salaries that they get back into those communities. So women essentially have rebuilt the broken bridge between conservation, which was becoming increasingly militarised, and the communities that live alongside these areas and are the traditional custodians of these lands. And so, we weren't expecting this. This is just some of the things that happen accidentally. And we had a blank canvas. All the areas that we work in, they're former trophy hunting areas. So the communities used to sell animals to international clients to come out and shoot, like whether it be an elephant or a buffalo or a lion, but that industry is dying. Whether people like it or not, it's dying. So we want to look at that as an equation to be solved rather than an argument to be had. So all of the areas that we work in, we've been able to turn these areas around. That the communities would otherwise be looking for an alternate land use, and that means agriculture or human settlement. And so now we have the willingness from the community to protect these areas and not turn it over to being lost to alternate land uses because of the investment that these women are making in those communities and the de-escalation that they've brought and the reuniting of conservation and communities.
I'm blown away by the fact that you said the women's life expectancy was 37 years.
Yeah.
Has that changed since helping?
It has.
Women?
Yeah, it has. And that was, the height of the HIV epidemic.
Yeah.
And of course, with the access to antiretrovirals, that is life expectancy in the country and the region and the continent has increased. But it's still a tough place to be a woman in rural Africa.
And certainly in some of these documentaries, you've had women standing up telling the other women why they're here and why they're training. And the common themes seem to be abusive relationships. They had the scars to show, and that was what they were using as their fuel to have their to stand up for themselves, do something that matters, and
look at the global corruption index, and Denmark ranks #1 as the least corrupt country in the world. I think Zimbabwe is 157 out of 180 countries. With the women, we haven't had a single incidence of corruption in like 7-8 years now since we started this particular program. They want to buy land, they want to build a house, they want to get their kids back into school, their siblings back into high school, healthcare for their parents and food on the table. And they just don't want to jeopardize that. And if you can remove corruption from anything you're trying to do, like you're already halfway home to achieving your mission.
Incredible. Now, in terms of funding, so I can imagine this operation costs quite a bit of money.
Yeah.
Where do you go for funding?
So, we've got some very generous donors in Australia, including the Australian government. But the bulk of it comes from the United States. And to date, we've raised close to $100 million. So, it's come a long way from the early days when we were trying to scrape together a few bucks here and there. But so I spend probably 9 months of the year on the road. So traveling around to different projects, looking at projects, working with leaders, working with partners, working with governments, speaking in Australia and the United States. And then, of course, trying to get back here and see family and friends.
And on that front, so you obviously have a family and you have 3 kids and a wife. How do you balance all of the travel, conservation and your family? Yeah,
look, there's very little separation between who I am and what I do. So there's a lot of integration. Sometimes you've got to force that, time away from work. Otherwise it's, when you're so passionate about what you do. But look, I'd say out of all the challenges I have, trying to find that balance is the ongoing one that I'll keep seeking.
Yeah. And what about your own physical and mental fitness? What do you do to stay clear, stay focused? And
I work. Honestly, it's the most. My wife Brianna, she'll go and meditate and do breath work. Like for me, the most relaxing thing I can do is work, because once I've done my work, then I can chill and be present.
So good.
But Yeah. Oh, look, I love it. You know, people that are looking to get involved with conservation, and I get asked that question a lot. And it's you know, just find something. And you know, from where we started to where we've got to, the only difference, like special forces, the only difference between me and all those that didn't make it was at the end of the day when so many people said it's too hard or it can't be done, I never gave up. And it is the number one ingredient in anything that you're passionate about. Just don't give up. And if you never give up, you'll eventually get to where you want to be and even further. As you start getting your head up higher and higher, you know, the horizon changes and you start to dream bigger. And you know, I would never have thought we'd be in this position. You know, we have, you know, within a decade, we will collectively be looking after an area larger than the state of Texas.
Wow.
You know, we currently have the biggest challenge of our civilization. We're at the crossroads in terms of where we're going to go as a species. The most important thing we can do is to protect nature. It's a system that's just spent 5.3 billion years evolving. And you know, if we look at regulating the planet, people are looking for different ideas and all this. And it's like, just give nature a chance to do what it does best. So the 30 by 30 challenge is this challenge we have as a civilization to protect 30% of the planet by 2030. And the 184 million acres that we want to help protect will be nearly 9% of the entire continent of Africa's 30 by 30 obligation. So we are thinking big. It definitely did not start that way. But you know, as you go along step by step, you can start to dream bigger.
And what is the legacy that you want to leave here? What would you be happy to lay down your hat once you've achieved it?
You know, like my purpose in life, you know, and I say this as a father with 3 kids, I just want to be able to say I help play a part in protecting as much of the natural world as possible. I'm an animal guy. Animals need one thing. They want one thing. They want to live. They need one thing to do it. They need space. And you know, all the millions and billions of little heartbeats that survive in the areas that we protect, you know, I'm proud of that. And yeah, they have that opportunity because of the team that we have.
Amazing. And if people want to support this cause, so to donate to Akashinga, how do they do that?
Just get on our website at akashinga.org, and I'm sure there'll be some writing.
We can pop that up. Yes,
yeah,
absolutely.
Written in there. Yeah, but no, I really appreciate you know, everything, you know, all the support. Not even necessarily for us as an organisation, but just people that shift their thinking and how they look at the world, and they can make a difference for animals, for the environment, for the generation that we're all part of you know, leaving behind. It's not our parents' fault, the situation we're in, and it's not our kids' responsibility. It's all of ours, and our time to act is right now.
Well, thank you, Damien. Damien, you are changing the world one heartbeat at a time. This is the Inspired CEO, and we'll be right back.